Hey, Åke, I see you have signed in. Can you just check that the microphone is working for you? Åke, can you hear me? Åke Holmgren, can you hear me? Duncan, I see you have signed in. Are you able to put your camera and microphone on so I can check that that's working?
Absolutely. I just switched my camera off just to not burden the call whilst we're not talking.
Good to see.
Now we have Åke with us.
We have Åke with us.
At least I can see him.
We can see Åke, but we can't. It will be good if you can put your microphone on, Åke, so I can hear that your microphone is working. Åke Holmgren, could you turn your microphone on for a second?
I don't see the mic on or off. Do you?
Maybe just call him Christina. We have everyone else on the line.
No, but she was asking somebody to make sure that their mic. Yeah. You see my mic anywhere? No.
Right there. Is that yours? It's on the screen right now. Go down.
Oh yeah.
Ja, testing. Åke Holmgren from Sweden here.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, it is 10 a.m. in Canada and 4 o'clock in Sweden. So good morning, Canada, and good afternoon, Sweden, and welcome to this roundtable discussion on cybersecurity within smart manufacturing. My name is Christina Kieran, and I am the country manager at Business Sweden in Canada. And together with Mark Henderson, chairman of the Sweden-Canada Innovation Initiative, we will be the host of this event for the next hour and a half. Before I invite our ambassador, I would like to remind participants to turn the microphone off and the videos. And for those who will speak, you can turn on the video and microphone when it's your turn. We will record this session and send out a link to everyone afterwards. And you are also welcome to post some questions in a Q&A after our roundtable discussion. So we welcome questions, and we will try to address a few of them to our panelists after the discussion. As you can see, we have a great number of speakers today, so I'm going to be short, and I hope you enjoy this next hour and a half. I would like to introduce our first speaker for today, our ambassador to Canada, His Excellence Mr. Urban Ahlin. Urban, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Christina, and hello, everyone. As Christina said, my name is Urban Ahlin, and I'm the Swedish ambassador here in Canada. And it's a great honor for me to introduce very shortly for you what the Swedish-Canadian Innovation Initiative is about. And this initiative was set up with the ambition to identify common challenges and technology areas, and also to manage activities in both our countries, Sweden and Canada, for co-creation of projects based on critical shared technologies. The initiative aims to scale up collaboration across the full innovation ecosystem, from academic exchanges, basic research, to small and medium-sized enterprise-focused initiatives, to industrial partnerships. Since the establishment in 2018, with an artificial intelligence focus and a following collaboration between Swedish and Canadian startups, the SCII platform has been used to highlight topics of interest from the SCII members. Today, the focus is on cybersecurity, which is a challenge not only to the industry, but also to the society in general. To explore these challenges, the SCII is organizing this roundtable to this discussion today with the ambition to shed light on some of the challenges regarding cybersecurity and to further enable bilateral collaboration around solutions for society and specifically for advanced manufacturing. An example from industry that would also encourage collaboration and innovation between Sweden and Canada is Saab's recent commitment to establish a new cybersecurity resilience center, an innovation and experience hub. That is part of the company's offer of Gripen aircraft for Canada's future fighter capability project. Thank you, every one of you, to take part in this interesting roundtable discussion. Over to you, Christina.
Thank you so much, Urban Aline, for that, and well said. And I will hand over to Regina Sommer, who is Chief Strategist for International Collaboration at the Sweden Innovation Agency, Vinnova. So welcome, Regina.
Thank you very much, Christina, and welcome to all of you. I'm so happy to see that so many of you have taken time in your calendar to join this event under the Sweden-Canada Innovation Initiative platform. And Urban, I think you gave a great introduction to what the platform is about. What I would like to do now is to thank both panelists and the speakers in advance for joining this session, and also to let you know that this platform is for all of us, even if Vinnova and Business Sweden are leading the platform and coordinating the collaboration. It is a platform for all of you to use, and we have a communication channel on the LinkedIn group Sweden-Canada Innovation Initiative. I think we have almost 2,000 followers right now, and there we post both network opportunities and funding opportunities that are in some cases for the Swedish actors for collaborating with Canadians, but also for Canadians to join collaborations, because we have a lot of great programs. For example, the Eureka program, Eurostars and Clusters, where Vinnova funds a lot of projects through that program, but also the funding on the Canadian side comes from NRC IRAP, and we have a great dialogue with them through the platform. So I would just like to say enjoy this session, and also take the opportunity to invite you to Sweden Innovation Days in January. This is a digital event where Canada participated last year, both with speakers and panelists, and we also had a great matchmaking session with Canadian corporates and Canadian startups, together with Swedish corporates and Swedish startups. So I'm going to post some information about that in the chat, but anything you want to know about future opportunities, both in funding and network, contact me. I will put my contact details in the chat. So enjoy the session today. And again, thank you all for taking time in your calendar to join and participate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Then I will give the word over to Mark.
Thanks, Christina and Ambassador Aline and Regina. That was a great introduction to the Swedish Canada Innovation Initiative. So I think we've heard of the value of the platform and what's been done so far. It's my pleasure now to actually introduce the next couple of speakers on the agenda. And at first, we're going to start with Dr. Ali Gurbani, who is, I think you have the wrong slide up there. That's Mr. Holmgren, but Dr. Gurbani received his PhD and master's in computer science from the University of New Brunswick and George Washington in the United States, and has held various academic positions for the past 39 years. He's currently a professor of computer science at the University of New Brunswick, a Tier 1 Canada Research Chair in Cybersecurity, and the director of the Canadian Institute for Cybersecurity, which was established in 2016. He has spent the majority of his 39-year academic career carrying out fundamental and applied research in machine learning and cybersecurity and critical infrastructure protection. Dr. Gurbani is also the co-inventor on several patents in cybersecurity and web intelligence, has published hundreds of peer-reviewed articles, and supervised over 200 research associates, postdoctoral fellows, and students throughout his career. He is the National Cybersecurity Consortium co-founder, the coordinator of the Privacy Security Trust Network in Canada, and has also served as the co-editor-in-chief of the Computational Intelligence. So, and there's more here, but I think we'd like to hear from Dr. Gurbani. So thank you, Dr. Gurbani, for taking the time to join us today. I'll turn it over to you for your comments.
Thank you very much, Mark. I can hear all day if you want to continue. Thank you for the introduction, nice introduction. And I would like to start with a special thank you to the organizers for allowing me to make a few remarks regarding cybersecurity in Canada. So, as you all know, we're living in an amazing time, the era of hyper-connectivity and super-socialized societies. The enormity of cyber threats and different ways in which cyber attacks can harm individuals, businesses, and nations are alarming and very concerning. We witnessed this at CIC, at the Canadian Institute for Cybersecurity, as on a daily basis, as our clients and partners regularly face new and evolving cyber challenges. From a Canadian perspective, in 2018, the Minister of Public Safety released the National Cybersecurity Action Plan for 2019-2024. The Government of Canada noted 3 key themes to be addressed in order to be able to realize its vision for a safe and secure Canada. They are 1, security and resilience, protecting Canadians, businesses, and government from evolving threats and cybercrime. 2, cyber innovation, supporting advanced research and talent development to position Canada as a leader in cybersecurity. And 3, leadership and collaboration by coordinating cybersecurity efforts and initiatives across the country and internationally with governments and businesses to benefit Canada and its partner. So on the second point, cyber innovation and talent development, the CIC is part of a pan-Canadian cybersecurity organization called National Cybersecurity Consortium, NCC, and has 5 founding university members: University of New Brunswick, Concordia University, Ryerson University, University of Waterloo, and University of Calgary. The NCC responded to a call for a proposal from the federal government for establishing a university-based cybersecurity program that will focus on cybersecurity innovation, talent development, and commercialization. It has partnered with over 100 universities, public institutions, and private companies from various industry sectors to support this unique initiative. The proposal is, of course, under review. However, the government of Canada has embarked $80 million for this initiative, and this does not include over $170 million contribution from the private sector and post-secondary institution. I should note that the key areas of focus of the NCC includes network security, software security, critical infrastructure protection, human-centric cybersecurity, and privacy. As you well know, the hyperconnectivity is driving the transformation of manufacturing to digitized and connected smart industry. As core component of the smart manufacturing, industrial IoT devices are driving into a fourth industrial revolution in global manufacturing. They are used in monitoring the operations, solving complex logistics, and predicting the downtime of the equipment. However, the industrial IoT brings with it changing threat landscapes and expanded attack surfaces. The manufacturing industry is among the prime targets of attackers and is under constant and persistent threats. While the implication of cyber threats to IT, finance, government, and healthcare are well known, the impact on smart manufacturing is not as well known and requires more research and studies. Equally alarming is the skills shortage in cybersecurity of smart manufacturing. In this regard, Canada is facing a serious talent crunch. A strategic partnership between industry, academia, and government through hands-on and collaborative training is key to overcoming these challenges. While the world's cybersecurity workforce grew by almost 20% last year to 3.5 million people, there is still a shortage of more than 3 million workers in this space. As for the latest smart manufacturing challenges, this year's data breach investigations report indicate that 73% of attacks launched against the manufacturing sector were motivated by financial reasons. So ransom will continue to be the #1 threat this year and cannot be ignored. Also, supply chain attacks are expected to quadruple this year and become more targeted. Drive-by wireless attacks are also rising, particularly as more people are working from home and in remote locations. Microsoft reports that IoT attacks increased by 35% in the first half of last year compared to the last half of 2019. At the CIC, we have an IoT lab focusing on identifying and addressing IoT devices vulnerabilities. So what should we do? We must respond and meet these challenges head on. We must rely on the significant resources that Sweden and Canada have to offer through its education and R&D institutions and private sector's players active in the cybersecurity spaces in order to counter these challenges. For example, let's promote more education and awareness. Canadians and Canadian businesses need to raise their game in terms of overall cybersecurity awareness and cybersecurity hygiene. Develop cybersecurity talent at all levels. This is extremely important. Educational institutions need to work closely with private sector and governments to identify the needs and how training can be adapted to ensure the students are exiting programs with the right skill set. Industry, including industry voice into the training programs, is critical, and practical hands-on training for students is a crucial success factor. Co-op programs, internship, students exchange, upskilling of existing staff are best practices for developing the cybersecurity workforce, and something that we must prioritize as we develop the next generation of cybersecurity talent. In addition, we should continue to develop and commercialize technology and solutions that keep us safe. Canada is known for its cyber R&Ds. Many technologies have been developed locally and bought and deployed internationally. I mentioned earlier the National Cybersecurity Consortium. A key goal of this consortium will be to work closely with the industry to develop much needed cybersecurity technology that can improve the safety of our online environments and drive positive economic outcomes. Finally, it is essential that we collaborate within and outside the country with trusted partners from across the globe. Different jurisdictions have different strengths and capabilities, and strategically partnering with other countries can greatly enhance the development and effectiveness of cybersecurity solutions. This is why it is absolutely very exciting to connect with our Swedish counterparts, both with researchers and industry, who play an important role in the global cybersecurity ecosystem. So in conclusion, I would like to say that the future looks bright. As a country, as two countries, we have innovative people connecting with industry, government, and global partners to deliver quality cybersecurity solutions and training. There are so many incredible technologies that have been developed, from medical to energy to finance to manufacturing, that depend on us to ensure to secure online environment so the benefit of these connected technologies can be fully realized. I will take a lot of, this will take a lot of hard work and determination, and there will be many significant challenges. But where there are challenges, there are also opportunities. Again, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for your time listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gramani. That was very interesting to listen to, the focus on resilience, the CIC's goals around innovation, talent, and commercialization, and the impending talent crunch all of this faces, and what partnerships between countries like Sweden and Canada can do to address some of these. And I'm sure that these topics will come up greatly in the roundtable that will follow. The next keynote, I'd like to welcome Dr. Åke Holmgren. Dr. Holmgren is head of the Cybersecurity and Secure Communications Department in the Swedish Civil Contingencies Agency, the MSB. Dr. Holmgren has more than 20 years experience in cybersecurity and critical infrastructure protection from various government functions in Sweden, including the Swedish Defense Research Agency, the Swedish Emergency Management Agency, and he has also been a member of the Norwegian Commission on the Digital Vulnerability of Society. He has been a visiting scholar at the Institute for Civil Infrastructure Systems, Wagner Graduate School of Public Service at New York University. He holds a PhD in Risk and Safety Analysis, a Master's in Engineering, both from the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, and a BSc, a Bachelor Degree in Business Administration at Stockholm University. So with that, I would like to hand it over to Dr. Holmgren for your comments, and I believe you also have a couple of slides that will be shared with the group here today.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you very much, and good morning and also good afternoon. Dear Mr. Ambassador, organizers, and colleagues, thank you very much for inviting me to this important event. As was said, my name is Åke Holmgren, and I will try to give you a brief overview of cybersecurity in Sweden. And I think I really enjoyed Dr. Gurbani's talk. I think we share a lot of the observations. Not being a native speaker, I think I will try to express them in my own way, but I do think that the future looks bright. There are a lot of opportunities, but we do have some challenges ahead also. Next slide, please. I will, let's see, is it possible? Can you see these slides? Yeah, there we have them up. Exactly, perfect. I'll start with just some general observations on cybersecurity and digitalization in Sweden. I mean, similar to most of the industrial world, digitalization exists in every sector of Swedish society, of course. And of course, the pandemic has accelerated this even further. I mean, many hundreds of thousands of people started working from home, and the change in our everyday life creates definitely a greater need for digital infrastructure and also cybersecurity. Sweden is one of the most digital countries in the world and a prominent nation when it comes to digital innovation. In the 2020 Network Readiness Index, Sweden was ranked #1 compared to other countries when it comes to take advantage of the opportunities of digitalization. This is the second year in a row where Sweden is ranked #1. And I would say Sweden is especially strong in the areas of using and adopting current and future tech, as well as impact dimensions, sort of such as economy, quality of life, and sustainable development. I mean, a digital society is reliant on a functioning IT infrastructure, of course. And we do need these systems and services for everyday life, and it's a complex dependency. And we are, of course, also connected to the world. And we also face, since many years, a situation where all these systems must work around the clock. And as an agency, the MSB agency, the Swedish Civil Contingencies Agency, we work in close collaboration with other cybersecurity authorities, and we receive a lot of incident reporting from actors both in the public and private sector. And together with some of our business intelligence, gives a pretty clear picture of how this can lead to crippling interruptions of services and production, and sometimes affecting essential services in society. As many of you are aware, a few months ago, an exploit in one of the company Kaseya's products was used to distribute malware to a large number of companies worldwide. And as a direct consequence in Sweden, retailer Coop was forced to close about 800 stores around the country. And as point of sale systems and even scales were infected. The company had to physically travel around the country and manually reinstall the units after a week of downtime. So the Coop food retailer is the sort of second largest in Sweden. There's another large food retailer also, but of course this gave an outcry in society, and I think it's the cybersecurity topic all of a sudden picked up a great amount of speed in our country. We also saw the content delivery network Fastly go down, and this was causing us big consequences for some of the media outlets, among else our major news tabloid in Sweden. Let's go to the next slide, please. Very quickly, I will just try to, on a very glance, give you a quick view of the Swedish cybersecurity strategy. And the main aim of this strategy is to help to create the long-term conditions for all stakeholders in society and to work effectively on cybersecurity and to raise the level of awareness and knowledge throughout the society. In the interest of time, I don't think I will go through all of these topics, but as many of the points that was mentioned by Dr. Gurbani, they also are in this strategy, of course. I mean, the skills shortage and the workforce talent, developing knowledge, pushing for exercises and training, cybercrime, creating a better response through cyber attacks, etc., and of course enhanced international cooperation being a very important topic also, of course. We can go to next slide. This is maybe a difficult picture for you to follow on digitally here, but just in general, there are multiple, when it comes to cybersecurity in Sweden, there are multiple actors that jointly make up the Swedish cybersecurity response. And the response is mainly divided between 7 authorities, but it's, I mean, generally, I would like to draw this picture the other way around, because I think businesses, associations, organizations, counties and regions, that's roughly where we have most of our important assets and where we also have cybersecurity response. But in order to fast forward a little bit, last year, the Swedish government formally established a Swedish national cybersecurity, which at this stage is kind of a collaboration body where we pool our resources, the 7 cybersecurity authorities. And at this stage, the MSB is hosting the center in our facilities, but the center will have its own staff and it will have its own location. But since a couple of years ago, we are working fairly closely to each other. And this includes also bringing in capabilities like the national CERT function, the CERT function, and response, and also joining up with cybercrime. So I think this is going to be a very interesting effort to see where this leads us, because we have chosen maybe a more kind of collaborative centric approach to cybersecurity center. We haven't created a new cybersecurity authority. Instead, we tried to draw on what we already have, because as I said, I think the main point here is to bring cybersecurity out in society also, and to leverage what can already be found out in the private sector also. Next slide, please. Can click all the different bullets. I think many of these thematic areas were found in Dr. Gurbani's speech also, but as Sweden had to be prepared for an uncertain future, I think we all have to, of course. International relations and developments affect our capability to maintain cybersecurity at great length. And I think the innovation and the potential effect on digitalization, we have to sort of use that to be better equipped to meet society in continuous change. And you all know these buzzwords, of course, but we are in the midst of a number of technological shifts in society. And this is not only affecting how we work with cybersecurity, but it's also affecting how we function as a society. And the global digital supply chain was already mentioned. I think that this is a threat combined, of course, with ransomware that we have observed for a number of years. And it possesses a threat to our ability to uphold essential services. And also ultimately large economic values, human health and lives, and sort of the security of our society at large is at stake there. Occasionally, as we see in the case of semiconductors, a large number of suppliers are dependent on one or a few manufacturing sites, which introduce high risk, and continuous maintenance of the digital supply chain is based on trust between all parties involved in the digital supply chain. And as I said, unfortunately, we have all seen plenty of examples where this has failed and how vulnerabilities in the digital supply chain has come to light. Let me just finally share a few thoughts on cybersecurity in the manufacturing industry. Typically, the MSB, we work in close collaboration with businesses operating essential services like energy and transport infrastructure, and we try to offer relevant support. Since about 10 years ago, we started a program on industrial control systems. Today, we focus on what we more generally like to refer to as cyber physical system security, and IoT is, of course, a component here. We have created a broad portfolio of support and advice and technical training and a good collaboration between industry, academia, and one of our national labs. So I think that there are many areas where the sectors share the same challenge as with manufacturing. and I think I got the cue there. So I would just sort of wrap this up and say that I think Sweden and Canada have similar challenges and opportunities when it comes to cybersecurity, and we have a lot to learn from one another. I mean, we're both solid, democratic, and sparsely populated countries in the north, and we are facing the consequences of an increased amount of cyber attacks from different international actors. We are also both dependent in various ways on cooperation and solutions by our direct neighbors, which, if being interfered, affects us directly. And I therefore look forward to our continuous collaboration where we can work together and overcome the of tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Holmgren, for that address. I think very interesting. Of course, the retail attacks in Sweden are well known, and the impact of those. Very interesting comments about the MSB and the cooperation between the 7 agencies. Of course, as Dr. Gabani said, emerging technologies, the impact on manufacturing, and the cooperation between the 2 countries, all really paramount comments from you and Dr. Gabani. And as I said, they'll probably be coming up in the roundtable to follow. So thank you very much for that. So as we get to the roundtable now, I'd like to introduce the moderator, Renee Sommer. And Renee is the Director of Government and Industrial Relations at the Ericsson Group, working on developing positive long-term industry policies within the ICT sector, which of course is key in shaping trust and constructive long-term relationships on behalf of Ericsson with key policymakers in many countries around the world. Renee is responsible for driving Ericsson's global policy issues in a number of areas, including cybersecurity, 5G security, open radio access network, privacy, digital trade policy, things that we've heard comments on in the previous 2 presentations. Renee holds a Master of Science degree from Reading University in the UK in International Business and Finance with expertise in business strategy and economic policy. He has a broad international policy experience engaging with policymakers across many jurisdictions, and of course is active in numerous trade associations around the world. When it comes to international policy experience, Renee, the list of countries you've been engaged with is longer than your bio, actually. So I'm not going to list them. I can just say that you've covered the alphabet from the letter A to the letter U. So maybe you need to spend more time in the future in Vietnam and Venezuela and some other countries, but don't give up. You can complete the whole list. So anyway, it's a pleasure to have you here, Renee, and help us guide us through this roundtable discussion. So I hand it over to you, and we're listening with eager ears.
Thank you, Mark, for the kind introduction. I will try to live up to some of it, and of course, my role here is to be the moderator for this roundtable, where we go into some depth to talk about cybersecurity in advanced or smart manufacturing. And to that end, I have brought with me here some friends and experts in this topic, and of course, they are the ones who I'm really leaning towards to be able to get some good suggestions and ideas and discussion on how we can move forward this discussion. And we have structured this roundtable around 5 questions, which we'll be addressing in order. And if there are any questions from the audience, please put them in the chat. And if we have the time again, we will try to also answer those. But without any further ado, I would like to invite all of my expert friends here and jump directly into the roundtable. And as we move on here, I think the first question that we wanted to talk about a little bit and discuss is about how national policy for cybersecurity can evolve together with digitization of manufacturing industries. And maybe Jim, you could bring in your perspective from ABB, what you see is important to consider. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here with you all. I think that the national policies are very important in motivating organizations. Businesses can have difficulty in understanding what risk they're at, and that will sometimes impede them from making decisions on budgeting for risk reduction, so they become somewhat paralyzed. But a national policy or standards, they can help drive organizations to move towards making those investments that are important to implement needed improvements to cybersecurity in the manufacturing environment. So it can be a very good motivating factor. And that's one point I would like to make. Another thing I would say is that sometimes there are three foundational concepts that are talked about with cybersecurity: people, processes, and technologies. And a lot of times when we talk about cybersecurity, we focus on the last two, the processes and technology, but there are other issues that our industry is facing in critical manufacturing, which is personnel. I mean, there's a lot of turnover, a lot of people reaching retirement that had expertise in those particular technologies. And with this opportunity to digitalize and share information and use machine learning, artificial intelligence, it gives us the potential to leverage resources so that they can be more effective, and we don't need to have those particular aspects in each location, and they can serve a wider range of organizations to help ensure that the cybersecurity inside those organizations. One other thing I would say is, in general, manufacturing systems, while they can be a distinct and unique entity and challenge to solve with respect to cybersecurity, because they have a special functional needs to meet to maintain those processes, but they are also at the same time today heavily reliant on IT. So that creates a bit of a difficult landscape in which to address that cybersecurity, because there's not a one-size-all solution. There are things that work well in an IT environment that would not work particularly well in an OT environment. So national policy and national agencies can really help these organizations with managing threats and providing information that the individual manufacturers, just can't do on their own, and provide insight into what they need to focus on to address the challenges that we're all facing as far as manufacturing in a global environment with threat actors out there that are looking to gain advantage.
Right. Thank you very much. I really heard also you echoing the people and skills that was mentioned by the previous speakers here. And maybe Duncan, you have some additional ideas and thoughts to fill in here. What can be done to improve the situation?
Yeah, thanks very much, Renee, and it's great to be here talking to you. I'll apologise to everybody up front. I'm in a hotel room in London, about 200 metres from the busiest fire station in the UK. So if you hear lots of sirens going off, please don't worry about the fact there's a problem with me. It's just London. So yeah, and I'd really sort of echo a lot of what Jim said and what we've already heard from the two keynote speeches, but also something I think that resonates very much with all of us here on this discussion, partly because we want to achieve success in cybersecurity. We want to collaborate. We're here to talk about how we achieve that, and it really sort of so much revolves around that, the people side of things. And really from the government perspective, and I say this as a small and medium business owner, as well as somebody involved in the innovation frameworks at the University of New Brunswick, is coming on about how the government creates relevant frameworks which are easy to approach. The biggest problem I believe that we have is in innovative, highly very agile companies and organizations that want to either introduce change or want to adopt digital systems to improve efficiency, but they become petrified of how difficult it is to actually comply with the actual frameworks that do exist. And what we tend to see from a government perspective, and I say this not just from a Canadian or a Swedish, but I think globally, is we see these collections of very monolithic approaches to cybersecurity. And there's a number of ways I think that government can sort of really establish effective leadership on that to make the most of what we hear about. One of the things I noticed that, that Sweden is #1 in network readiness. One of the things I'm also aware of in Sweden that is a real tribute to policies and procedures is the pantheism that exists in Sweden, the number of languages that people in Sweden speak. We should be approaching digital and cybersecurity from a government perspective in exactly the same way. It should just be something that people talk about. It should just something that becomes part of our educational processes. And whether that's starting in schools and bringing it into discussions early and educating our teachers about why this is important, to our supply chains and to the digital future, that has to be led by the government, and effective policies to introduce those types of discussion into what we do. Do we have a common framework for cyber hygiene within our universities? Every university within Canada or Sweden should be looking to guidelines and really to the government to sort of establish these are the absolute minimums that you should be ensuring that every single one of your students is aware of. It should be as much a part of the year one courses as proving that you can speak your native tongue, or that you can do math, or that you can do any one of those things. It should be there, but also those institutions should be practicing it, and they should be helping all of their student body to come up to a level which is really acceptable. And I think really that speaks to my final point, which before I hand off, and that's creating best practice. And to a degree, it comes back to not having monolithic policies. We don't deal well with monolithic policies as people and as human beings. What we should be doing is that the government should be actually approaching all of this because it has the responsibility for security of all of our critical infrastructure. It should be approaching that with best practice and showing industry how to do things, rather than what we tend to see, which is industry going, hey, government, you should be doing this and you should be achieving these standards in this way. And I know Jim and I had a little bit of a conversation actually about one of those monolithic things that we both face in our industry in North America, and government in the US in particular thinks that it's doing the right thing, but what it's doing is it's creating obstacles and it's not creating best practice. So those are just my thoughts. I know some people will disagree with them, but hopefully that just adds to the discussion as we move forward.
Sure. Well, that's why we are here, I guess. And thank you, Duncan and Jim. And let's bring this down a notch and focus more on the industry here. And if we look at more specifically at the security challenges that the smart manufacturing industry faces, what can your organizations do here to help? And let me start maybe with Paul here to give his perspective, what he has to say about the matter.
Hi, yeah, so I'm actually live here in the Ericsson factory that we built as a smart factory to kind of walk the talk, right? So I echo a lot of the sentiment from before about how AI, ML, and cloud and all of these things help with Industry 4.0. But at the same time, they actually create a bigger security, attack surface. So AI, ML, right? It benefits from having all the data together so you can use it. Well, that makes an attractive target. Going to the cloud is great for IT, but it disaggregates your solutions and exposes things outside of your four walls. Global manufacturing. So these are all challenges that we face. And Ericsson being a global company, right? We have global R&D, global customer base, global manufacturing. How do you protect all of that while still, innovating and embracing Industry 4.0? So we've decided to, build a factory in the U.S. here, make it a smart factory. We've become a World Economic Forum lighthouse. So we're trying to walk the talk, and by experiencing it from the end user perspective, coming back and feeding back into the ecosystem to try to say, well, here's how we need it to be better, how it needs to be easier. I think I echo what Jim and others have said about the scale, right? Do we have enough talent, the people? I think we'll never have enough talent because you look at AI, ML, and everything. We're going to have to make the systems smarter, right? And hence, talk about policy and innovation. So, the cloud has innovated a lot. It has really made it attractive as an option from doing your own servers in-house, right? So I think if security can go that way, I think it'll really help. So, what we're doing to help is become a lighthouse to kind of experience it and share what we've learned. We're also building an ecosystem lab, so collaborating with Canadian, Swedish, and other global companies to come up with solutions and build an ecosystem that works together. So again, avoiding the monolithic thing that I think I also agree is not the right answer. So so far we're all echoing good things. The one thing that I think I'll say that you guys won't like is, I hear people talking about security as an investment. To a factory, security is a cost. And it's something we have to do. It's super important, but it's a cost, and we want to minimize that. So I think innovating there is going to be critical to make that easy to deal with.
Great, thank you. And maybe Duncan, you have some interesting response or reply or comment here as well.
Yeah, and we face in my business, we're basically a developer of advanced manufacturing software in the mixed reality space, and interestingly, how we approached that as a company when we set the company up, myself and the co-founder, was we actually set ourselves up as a cybersecurity company to create mixed reality, and it's created a really interesting paradigm in how we actually just have that opening discussion with industry, because to Paul's point, it is seen as a cost, but there's a very clear realization that it's one of those opportunity costs as well. If you don't take the opportunity to accept enhanced security, then downstream you may end up with an incredibly significant cost as a result of that. So it is a lot of balance on that side of things. Securing the supply chain is really important from a business perspective, and again, it really comes back to making sure that every member of your team is part of the security answer. We always, as Jim had mentioned, we talk about policies and procedures, and we talk about technology, and we talk about the people, but the people have to understand the policies and procedures, and the people have to know how to use the technology. And at UNB, they've done one of the things that I know it's not unique in universities and so on, but they've taken some of the experiences they had when the university network got hacked about 6 years ago, and on that side of things, they've introduced policies which would be universally welcome in any industry. And again, that comes back to that educating people about what to expect in industry as they become the leaders, as they become the next engineers and software developers in a company, or as they become the next chief finance officer or something along those lines. And understanding those things is really good. I mean, I'd thought of a lot of the things, and I'd really put down another side to the way in which, certainly from a university perspective and from a research perspective, can help companies like mine or many of the others that are on this call. It's helping to reduce the cost of compliance when it comes to what's going to come next. So we talk about IoT on this call, for instance, and we've mentioned that already. When you're integrating IoT and you're turning your production line into something that is much smarter than it will be, it will increase your efficiencies, and it will bring benefits in terms of the analysis of the data that's available to you. But at the same time, how do we make sure that it is secure? And that's how really very much at the University of New Brunswick, and again replicated in many of the universities in Canada and Sweden, having access to an applied research team that can say to you, okay, well, we know that, we can talk about that in detail, and we can do an analysis of we can do it digitally. This can be done as in a sandbox, and we can analyze that for you. We can show you and take those steps forwards. And that's really, I think, what's marking out a lot of the universities, and the Fulcrum at the University of New Brunswick is a classic example of that, where business can approach with no fear of talking of jargon. They can speak to somebody who is not necessarily a computer science graduate, and they can say, these are my problems. How can I, or this is what we perceive to be the problems. How can we make sure that this is secure going forwards? And I think that approach, again, it's reducing the friction to have the conversation in order to bring in the right answers now, so that it may be a cost, but it's one which actually prevents those downstream significant impacts from a breach.
Thanks, Duncan. And I wonder what Pernilla has to say about all this. I would like to hear from a sub perspective.
Thank you so much, Renee, and thanks for having me in this panel discussion. Well, working as a consultant, supporting our industrial customers in digital transformation and in smart manufacturing, I would like just to bring up shortly 3 challenges I see from my perspective. And one of those has already been discussed a lot today, and that is the OT security side. We see a lot of challenges here. Many of our customers are mature when it comes to traditional IT security, but when it comes to the OT security side, that's a completely new area. And there's a huge need for a more mature approach, both when it comes to technology, but also the people side and the processes. And we see a gap when it comes to overall frameworks and directives when it comes to OT security. And often we identify a gap when it comes to responsibility for the OT security. And we can also see that there's a huge need for alignment between the approach for IT security and OT security, not only from a responsibility perspective, but also from an architectural perspective, which is interesting. And then I just want to add in a perspective to the supply chain challenge, which of course is one of the huge cybersecurity challenges we're in the middle of today, and thinking third-party risk and thinking risk outside our own companies and into whole ecosystems is a challenge for many organizations today, especially in the middle of a digital transformation. So there's a huge need, as I see it, for models and ways to pose requirements from a cybersecurity perspective and follow them up in the ecosystem and in the supply chain. But one thing that we talk quite rarely about, I think, is the opportunity as well, because thinking risk in an ecosystem or in a complete supply chain also means that we can see opportunities in actually sharing risk and sharing costs inside these supply chains and ecosystems. I've seen some really good examples where companies go together, develop like awareness measures, films, productions where they got a lot of bang for the buck, investing together, also investing in like really great technical testers, like ethical hackers, sharing the cost for that, and by that being able to work together, securing the whole supply chain. So there's a lot of opportunity as well, not only challenges. And finally, I would also like to add that we talk a lot about securing the operations and the business thinking cybersecurity. From my perspective, I also see a huge need for us cybersecurity professionals to think business and to align our way of work with new ways of work for the business, protecting the new values in the business. A lot of the value is in software, and we need to adapt, and we need to perhaps change our operational models when it comes to IT security to adapt to the new business models that our organizations are entering into. So I think we need to look at ourselves as well and try to be business minded as cybersecurity professionals as well.
Great, thank you very much. I mean, we have focused quite a lot now on the multinational companies and global supply chains and all that, but of course we also have small and medium-sized enterprises who may of course be global in many aspects and definitely interdependent. But Wendy, I was wondering whether you had any specific perspective from the SME angle that we maybe didn't capture until now that is particularly pertinent for the small and medium-sized enterprises.
All right, thank you very much, Renee, and thanks for the invitation to this roundtable. I liked what Duncan was saying, that there is this fear of cybersecurity and this monolithic approach. And when you look at the SMEs, strong security policies will help the SMEs to better understand what is required to support the good security practice, both in IT and OT. Pernilla, you mentioned about the OT, and sometimes there's really not that really good understanding of what policies to put in place for the OT. So I think, understanding the overall risk in the organization will help them to understand where to focus those costs. Because I know cost comes up with an SME. And they can benefit, I think, from a risk assessment that speaks to the actual risks of their business model. What is it that, not just the infrastructure, but what's the most important asset in their organization? And in a world where we're moving into 5D and data-driven systems, smart manufacturing, identification of data, as well as the critical OT assets, is really critical to allocating those dollars to cybersecurity. So it's really important for the SMEs to understand also their industry compliance. You can start with a NIST, but do you have a SCADA system? Do you need to look at NERC for electricity grid? Do you have PCI, GDPR, SOX? I mean, there's so many of them. It can be overwhelming, and I think that's one of the fears of a lot of the SMEs in the cybersecurity is, I'm going to get an assessment and it's going to be huge. I'm going to have to put hundreds of thousands of dollars and there goes all my profit, right? But I think in being able to define upfront the business risks to that business and look at that defense in depth of both the IT and the OT system, because I think in a lot of the SMEs, they really don't understand the difference between IT and OT, and there is a difference and there are additional risks and compliances. I think that also ensuring that you have a really good, strong IT infrastructure will allow for more of the digital manufacturing applications. And so by understanding what the policies are, putting them into place, ensuring that you have that good, strong IT and OT infrastructure, set the standards, educate your staff about cybersecurity requirements to ensure that everybody's following these policies, and then defend against organized crime attacks through layers of security that are sized right for the organization.
I mean, I heard the previous speakers mentioning the cost aspect here. How about the SMEs then? I mean, if this is a problem for the big guys, how about the SMEs then? What do you see?
Yeah. No, absolutely. From a cost point of view, what I found talking with a lot of SMEs over years is that they can't afford the full assessment put out by one of the large organizations. So when they're starting to look at what's important for me, I think sometimes it really is just a quick question, 1 to 20. What is your risk of your organization? Do you have affiliates attached to you? Do you have affiliates that have access to your network? Do you have third parties that have access to your network? There's some simple questions that can help reduce the cost, because the SME doesn't know what they should be spending on cybersecurity. What is that percentage of revenue that I should be spending?
Great, thank you. And I know also that, Paul, you had a reflection, although you are not representing us, you had some thoughts here as well.
Exactly. But the thing is, even though we're a large company, we depend and interact with a lot of small and medium businesses. And we totally understand your point, Wendy. Like, we kind of drag them through our process. And so when you're a small company and a large company puts you through their process and say, are you secure, right? We put you through vulnerability assessments, and it's a long process. And I think, we're one customer, or, one customer of theirs. And if every large customer of theirs does that to them, it's huge. So I think, back to something maybe I think Pernilla, where you were saying is, can we make it easier? Can we have a path that says, okay, you're certified. You've gone through an entity that most large companies will trust, will accept that piece of paper that you've gone through the process once really well, and you embrace the best practices and you're using the mechanisms that, we've all mutually invested in. One great example, when you look at like the success of the internet, right? We have PKI infrastructure, we have HTTPS, we have best practices that when someone says, yeah, I do that, you're basically good to go. You do a quick check to make sure it's authentic, but you trust these things. So I think if security can get there with IT, OT, and all of these like interoperability issues, that will help the small and medium business succeed. And I think in Canada, there's a lot of innovation in smaller companies, right? Like someone said before, we're very geographically sparse, right? So a lot of forestry and mining. Well, how do we get security out to everybody and have them participate in this great manufacturing opportunity, right? So I think that's how policies will help, right? Make it easier for them to deal with us. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And I mean, we have talked about the big and small companies now, and of course, coming back to the collaboration between the public and the private, and what is really needed here to move the needle here, specifically in smart manufacturing. Jim, I was hoping you had some great ideas to share with the audience today.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier a little bit that the government agencies can help drive change in the organizations. But smart factories today, they're incorporating a lot more advanced technology, and it's developed in a global environment. And anybody can only have so much visibility into what's happening inside that supply chain that reaches around the world. The traditional attack vectors that organizations have worried about in the past, is it coming from the web, from my web servers, or is it insiders that I have to worry about, theft of intellectual property? Those are now accompanied by additional vectors. Cloud services, what's happening in the various cloud environments that you're utilizing in the organization. Even 5G, which is going to enable a lot of wireless connectivity with the bandwidth that's available there. It's certainly going to be utilized. And even though there is security built into it, there will be threats that come in that direction. So organizations could really be helped by nation states' capabilities to understand the threat environment, as I mentioned earlier. So we can't all do that research. We can't all be aware of what threat actors are doing in different parts of the globe and how they're addressing, these new technologies. So we could use, as manufacturers, some support from the government to tell us where to focus on. But the manufacturers themselves, they could also help each other by sharing best practices. There's always some organizations in any industry that seem a little more forward-looking, and they take a topic and seem to be able to devote the resources necessary. And most of them are willing to share if you engage with them in a community setting like this, and bringing those experiences to where they've failed and what has worked well for them. A lot of the organizations could benefit from those types of engagements. And I guess finally, there are a number of government standards that we look to as ABB to help design our development programs around and our best practices. In the U.S., NIST has been a pretty good source for developing publications. You want to make use of those, but you might not know how to apply them. So that's another area where we could use better cooperation, where, hey, these standards exist. It looks like a lot of work. How do I go about implementing this in my organization? So sharing experiences there, I think, would be very helpful as well for a lot of organizations that are somewhat paralyzed and don't know how to start down that road.
Yes, great. Thank you, Jim. And Wendy, do you agree with Jim, or did he miss something important, or do you want to add? We can't hear you, Wendy. You're on mute.
Yeah, I knew that would happen at least once today. Yeah, no, absolutely agree.
Would you like to add something from your perspective on what this public-private partnership could do or help the situation?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think when you look at smart manufacturing, the whole point of smart manufacturing is for profitable deployment of technologies to achieve the business objectives. And I had that written down because I really liked the way that was written. It's very important for, especially from the SME point of view, to be able to implement projects in a way that achieves that business objective. And we haven't had a great track record. We've had a lot of technologies that have been implemented, projects that have not moved through. And in NGEN's experience, it's the technology and the manufacturing organizations that really need to collaborate in order to integrate the technologies and develop the manufacturing solutions. So that's one of the really key partnerships of collaboration is between the manufacturing and the technology organizations to look at, what we develop as products and processes, which are now becoming data platforms. We want to ensure the security, the quality, the integrity of that data, and we want to have success. Supply chain's another area where collaboration with your own supply chain will help to not only with the manufacturing companies that are competing, but with supply chains that are more broadly innovative value chains, if you will. You talked about a supply. I think, Paul, you were talking about one of the suppliers that has multiple companies coming at them with, here's my standard, here's my standard. I think the supply chain is the most important thing to look at from a cybersecurity point of view, that we're not, divide and conquer our supply chain, but including them as a collaborative partner in what we do as cybersecurity throughout that kind of whole value chain, if you will. From a private and a public point of view, we want to be able to secure, standardize, and manage our infrastructure. And, again, this is all coming back to data and having that success of understanding what it is that we're putting into place in smart manufacturing. Some of that collaboration is through similar organizations, identifying business opportunities, especially in the international markets, partnering to curate innovation partnerships. I think this is really important for SMEs who really need to have that voice. They need to work with academia. I think they're not working enough with academia to understand what those integrated work skills are and be able to develop new learning opportunities. Join in the conversations with consortiums and clusters, kind of support. There's a lot of support there beyond the old traditional best practices and helping to guide the SMEs through the questions that they need to ask. And then, of course, from public, there's the public funding organizations that can help with the scale up of the technology. And I think there's a lot more in there as well, but I think as a base for organizations, collaboration is what's going to help with driving the technology scale up and with the cybersecurity and understanding what the risks are of that scale up before it's implemented.
Great, thank you. Well, I hope that Ali has been listening to all of you, and now I would like to see whether it's back to school for you guys or whether Ali actually agrees to some of what you have said, and if there are any additional perspectives here on what's particularly important from the public-private partnership. What do you say, Ali? Back to school, or is it, or are you satisfied with some of these comments?
No, these were thank you, Rene. These were fantastic points. I do agree with all of them. I think one thing that comes to mind is that, yes, good thing can happen on a case-by-case basis when you want to do something with industry or vice versa. But for me, great thing happens when you put in a structure around it. And I think I wrote in the document that I would like to see a Swedish-Canadian consortium around the smart manufacturing cybersecurity and how we can actually more in a more structured way work together and divide the challenges and together come build solutions for those challenges and problems. So this is what I think ultimately could be the best approach going forward. I, for one, would advocate this idea for sure that we find a way as Duncan and others mentioned, how we can basically speak the language of industry, and in this case, smart manufacturing and advanced manufacturing folks, what are the problems they have. I mean, academia speak the language that we could actually find out what the problem is, and vice versa. They also understand how academic works in terms of innovation research and bring new solutions to difficult problems. So I think overall, I would like to see that on a training side, if we can get together and build training, and I mean training, not 4 years educational degree program, training that are suited for industry in Sweden as well as in Canada, and we could offer it between the two countries. We come up with how we can actually do exchange of knowledge, people, researchers, practitioners. Having the students participate in different activities as a co-op or intern, etc., within the countries. I would like to see those happens. One thing I want to add to what Paul mentioned, which is a great point in terms of it's not the big industry that is we're talking about. It's an industry that has a lot of a smaller industry that they work with. And when it comes to the policy and practices and procedures, we all know that how we have been benefiting from open technologies, but also we also suffered from cybersecurity perspective from open technologies. So when it comes, for example, to OT for smart manufacturing, we have plenty of OT technologies, open PLC, open controller, open IDE that the small companies are using when they develop their solutions. So when they bring it to the large company for inclusion into the whole process and technology, then here we go. We actually have problems or weak link in some of those open technologies that we have to attend to it. So when it comes to OT, one of the major challenges that I see currently we're working on is OT forensics, especially when it comes to open technologies, open OT technologies. I'm going to stop here.
Thank you much, Ali. And we kind of also already nudged on the last and final question when it comes to the Swedish and Canadian collaboration here and what can be done jointly to move this discussion and of course progress not only in the bilateral context but also internationally. And maybe Pernilla, you have few suggestions on top of what Ali already mentioned.
I think Ali mentioned a lot of really important things that I really appreciate him bringing up, like having joint consortiums and joint collaboration already at the school university level and also doing joint training and exercises, which I believe is a fantastic way of raising cybersecurity awareness and maturity. And I think, I mean, the cybersecurity threat is global. And we have global supply chains today, as someone mentioned before. So, and the cyber skills gap is just increasing, and there's actually too few of us. So we really need to collaborate at cybersecurity professional levels between the countries. I think there's a lot of experience exchange that can be made between Sweden and Canada, being similar countries, both to increase competence at professional personal level, but also at national level. And I'm really happy and proud that actually Saab is now investing in or planning to invest in building a new cybersecurity center to be located in Ontario. And by that, I think establishing a good opportunity and a center that will encourage collaboration and innovation between our two countries and the Canadian and Swedish industry and academia. So I'm looking really much forward to that, and I'm really happy about that.
Thank you, Pernilla. Ali, would you like to add something more to this bilateral collaboration, or you think you have covered it all before? Please, the floor is yours.
And I think I covered, and I think I mean, I'm really pleased to see Saab is bringing this operation to Canada and in Ontario. We extend our hands again from NCC perspective, from our institute perspective. And I'm not only talking about academia. We're actually a group of different organizations from different industry as well as academic and not-for-profit, working together in cybersecurity domain in Canada. And we extend our hands to Saab and other industry from Sweden to work together. What I am advocating is, as I said, is a more a structured collaboration. So I would like to see if we can come together in a smaller number at some point in the near future to identify what it is needed to that we come together and create some form of a consortium and identify some of the goals and objectives and KPI, that what it is that we want to achieve in 3 years in terms of developing program, co-creating programs, developing solutions for different cybersecurity challenges. Again, since I'm coming from academia, the students' involvement in different ways. What it is that academic, in this case, Saab and other companies from Sweden need to go into the curriculum, and that when the graduates come out, they'll be actually job ready for smart manufacturing companies. So I'm prepared from my perspective, from NCC perspective, and from group of academic industry that we're working with, to actually continue this conversation to see if we can realize this. Probably be the first one happening. I'm not sure of any other such consortium, but given the two countries' similarities, given the two countries' capacity and smart people that we have in two countries, I think we should be able to achieve some of the objectives that we were looking in cybersecurity.
Great, thank you much. And I know it's unorthodox for the moderator to come with a suggestion, but since I had so much inspiration from the panelists, I would really just like to second the fact that improving the security of open source components, and maybe those that are most frequently used in manufacturing, both in the operational and IT environment, I think this is an area where, of course, collaboration between Canada and Sweden would be particularly valuable. And improving the security posture of open source is something which will benefit both the small and medium-sized enterprises and the big ones, and in their collaboration together. So maybe this is something which Åke and Christina and Regina can take with them, that this is definitely an area. But since we have 1 or 2 more minutes left, maybe Wendy or Jim or Duncan want to add something as well, or Paul?
Yeah, I'll just add a few kind of closing comments. I think a lot of the theme of today was very common. It's the SMEs who are having a very difficult time understanding how cybersecurity affects them, their business, the risk to the business, the cost. How do they ensure that their bottom line is not affected with cybersecurity mitigation costs, as well as any of the breach costs. And I think, I think we said it early on, it's something that scares the SMEs, and this is our supply chain. This is for the large organizations. These are the small organizations that are really struggling to increase their technology footprint and be cyber secure so that things are not passed on to the large organizations. And I think, talking about a consortium is definitely a really big step forward for them to be able to have that resource to be able to understand how they fit into the bigger picture.
No, that's a huge enabler too. I really agree. Like, if you think about all of the innovation, a lot of it comes from the small and medium businesses that, maybe they're new grads from university and they just have these brilliant ideas, but they're small. So yeah, if we make that path easier by having consortiums and policies, like help them know what to expect, this would be brilliant for Canada and Sweden, right? Because both countries have a ton of innovation. It's really IPR based kind of businesses because of the way the countries are spread out, right? So no, that's a great idea, you guys.
You know, just one other quick thing. So I come from the utility industry as well as manufacturing, and I spent 6 years there. Within Ontario, we developed a framework for the cybersecurity framework for Ontario utilities. One of the things that I really found very interesting was their GridX, and this was from the US and Canada. It was a 1-2 day event where they simulated an attack on the grid, and everybody was invited to be a part of this, both from all of North America, because there is such a dependency between the grid in Canada and across the border. I think something like that would be really fantastic to be able to put together, even on a small scale. For this, I put some notes there. So for on a small scale, for some of the small organizations to really get their feet wet into what would an attack look like, and how would it affect their organization.
Yeah, and on a global supply chain, like, wow, what a wonderful learning we would have. Like, I think that would be a huge benefit. Really hard to pull off, though, I think.
Yeah, a lot of hours.
Well, I think we are coming to the end of this panel, and I can maybe conclude that we agree that we should do this again. Yeah. and hopefully soon. So maybe with these final words, it's time to round this out. Thank you again to all the panelists for making the time and for your valuable contributions. And over to Mark.
Or Christina.
Christina, then.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you also, Renee, for moderating this fantastic panel discussion. I learned a lot, and you're all a great panelist, and we really enjoyed hearing your perspective. And most definitely, I feel like we will have to continue this discussion, maybe have a few more roundtable discussions, or in another setting as well. We really appreciate your feedback. So we had a great audience today of over 100 people at one point. So please reach out to us if you have ideas, if you have questions. We would be more than welcome to address them at a later point. So we are now heading over to the closing remarks that will be done by Ms. Corinne Petristor, newly appointed Senior Trade Commissioner at the Canadian Embassy in Stockholm. And Corinne, I know you have a long career within global affairs, and you have been in both Russia and Bangladesh before, and now just arrived in Stockholm. And this will be your very first event at the embassy there. So we are very honored to have you here with us today. So over to you.
Great. Thank you, Christina. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'll say good morning to my colleagues in Canada and good afternoon to those of us in Stockholm. It's a real pleasure to participate in today's roundtable on behalf of the Government of Canada, and it's an honor to support another Canada-Sweden innovation initiative, particularly one that increases cooperation and bilateral trade in an increasingly vital sector, as we've just heard for the past 90 minutes. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the Swedish and Canadian speakers, panelists, and participants of today's events, especially His Excellency, Ambassador Aline. I enjoyed listening to a really, I would say, sincere and lively discussion about this growing issue, and really all the diverse opinions and perspectives that we heard tonight. It was quite a lively but heartening. I think it ended on a very positive note. I think that there could not be a more appropriate time than now for us to discuss cybersecurity. We move into a more virtually connected world, and that has been witnessed, I think, even more so by our virtual lives since the ongoing pandemic in 2020. Both organizations and individuals are facing increasing threats, and we have large-scale threats as well to our global supply chains, our financial systems, and of course, manufacturing, which we heard tonight. So I'm happy to advise that Canada's commitment to these challenges includes the Government of Canada National Cybersecurity Strategy and an action plan. These strategies and plans include supporting our companies to develop solutions for a range of clients in innovation, in R&D, both in academia and the private sector. And we, like tonight, working with our partners around the world to create best practices. Canada has cybersecurity clusters across the country, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, Calgary, New Brunswick, and we are always pleased to welcome international partners for collaboration. And I'm sure that most of you, especially our Canadians, are aware of the Trade Commissioner Service. And our role with the government is to provide our clients with help in foreign markets and on-the-ground support. We do this across Canada in our regional offices and in approximately 160 cities around the world. But we have dedicated officers who are working exclusively in the cybersecurity arena, in headquarters, in our regional offices, and around the world. So with that, I take a quick moment to acknowledge a few of my colleagues online joining us both here in Stockholm and also in Ottawa. So Mr. Uffe Galsgaard is our Trade Commissioner responsible for ICT and cybersecurity. Mr. Magnus Alman is the Nordic Senior Investment Officer, and Ms. Maria Stenberg is the Trade Commissioner responsible for infrastructure, mining, and other sectors. And in headquarters, we have Senior Policy Analyst Mr. Duncan DeLute also participating. So I think what that shows you is how important this is to the government and how we take these concerns very seriously, hearing from SMEs, from universities, and both Canadian and Swedish business people. So there are growing opportunities in partnership and investment in Canada's cyber, AI, and quantum ecosystems, which we heard a little bit about tonight, mentioned tonight as well. For your information, Canada has more than 200 cyber security firms in operation, which contribute to about 1.7 billion into our economy, and which employs more than 11,000 people. So as Christina mentioned, I've just arrived in Sweden, but I'm already so impressed by the shared interest to collaborate, especially in such a highly skilled and highly developed area, and especially between our countries with strong open market and inclusive economies. One would think with this kind of ecosystem and this kind of structure that opportunities for ICT and R&D should be abundant, particularly as our countries face similar opportunities and challenges. But we've heard about increased cyber attacks, shortages of talent in spite of our skilled workforce. So I was very interested to hear how the panelists and speakers approach these issues head on. And it also gave me an idea of provided a better understanding of where and how the participants feel the government should play a role in these ongoing challenges. We, of course, have a shared objective of fostering a safe environment for our individuals, our businesses, and our academic institutions to thrive. Mr. Gourbani started off the night by saying that the future looks bright, and we heard so many innovative ideas from the panelists throughout the last 90 minutes that I have to agree with that. I really do look forward to continuing this conversation, to facing the challenges, not looking at as obstacles, but where we can be positive in finding common goals and objectives. And of course, we look forward to participating in more Sweden-Canada innovative initiatives. Thank you very much for giving me the time to speak tonight.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. And we are right on the time here, 11:30 in Canada, 5:30 in Sweden. Thank you so much for participating and being part of this event. And we will be in touch again. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.